and know that... Bad tune, sorry. That I'm with you. Be still and know. Be still and know that I'm with you. Be still and know. Join me, church. Be still and know that I'm with you. Be still and know. One more time. Be still and know that I'm with you. Be still and know. Part of Psalm 46, a beautiful psalm, Martin Luther's one of his favorite songs. We used that psalm and that little callback at camp this past week. Some of our students knew that every time you heard that, something important was about to happen. We also had a lot of other upbeat songs, but that was one of our quiet ones. Is Jacob back there? I see Jess Grace. Jacob, her son, was with us, and apparently he and Liam Tolbert, Liam is at Camp Greer today, Liam and Jacob sang that song and Ren Collective's song about my lighthouse, the whole way back, among other things, yesterday. One of our other participants, Aldra, she is now in Wisconsin. Another participant, Charlie, is down in Florida. We just got back yesterday. They're all over the world. And Jaden is here, but she is with our children's at the time, with helping out with Carissa. We had a fantastic week at camp. It was a Holy Week experience, because that's what we focused on, Holy Week. And the journey of Palm Sunday through Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, and Resurrection Sunday, and on Friday at camp, actually Thursday night at camp, we got to proclaim, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Hallelujah. That was our proclamation at camp. Really, really cool. In the midst of July, in the midst of hot weather, not springtime and not Easter lilies everywhere, but it's hot and summer camp, proclaiming Christ is risen. But the students did really well walking through this journey with us. 91 students, about 20 adult leaders, another 12 camp counselors who were part of that, our week together, amongst other students in other age groups all around camp. It's the church, being church at camp. And the church in the book of Acts is being the church. The second part, the part that Jim just read, begins with Paul. He shows up, he preaches a sermon. It's on the first day of the week. So in Acts chapter 20, the church is already gathering on the first day of the week, just like we are doing. Except they're not gathering at 10 o'clock in the morning. He's gathering on the evening, on the first day of the week. And maybe some people had already been working, because even today in Israel, in Judaism, the first day of the week is a day to work. God worked on the first day, and therefore, people in Israel work on the first day. And then they gathered for worship, maybe like our 6:30 p.m. Sunday night worship service. Then they gathered for worship that evening. And the story that says Paul got there to break bread on the first day of the week, to remember Jesus. And he preached and he preached and he preached and he talked and he talked and he talked. It went on so long, even to midnight, that some young man, some kid, some boy named Eutychus is sitting in a windowsill, 3 flights up, 3 stories up. This is not the upper room, this is the upper room. And Paul's sermon has been one of those knock down, drop dead sermons, right? And Eutychus falls asleep. Maybe he'd been working, maybe he was just way past his bedtime, maybe he'd stayed out all night Saturday night and been really tired, but whatever reason, he falls asleep. And the story begins with a bit of humor. And then he falls out the window, plop. And I wonder who yells, who screams. Does his mom, does his girlfriend, does his sister? Who screams? Does the whole church yell? Does Paul stop his sermon and yell? It's a pretty horrific incident. The kid falls. Bam! He's on the ground outside. It says, the text said that they came to him and there was no life in him. He was dead. But Paul, the only part of the sermon that gets preached and remembered is Paul runs down there and embraces the young man. And then says, do not be alarmed, or do not be afraid. He is alive. Kind of what the angels at the tomb of Jesus said. Do not be afraid. He is alive. What Mary Magdalene ran from the tomb to proclaim to the disciples. Do not be afraid. Jesus is alive. This kid's not Jesus, but he's part of the church. And so yes, Jesus Christ is in him and with him and a part of him. And Paul proclaims the gospel message. Do not be alarmed. Do not be afraid. He is alive. Be still and know that I'm with you. Be still and know. Be still and know that I'm with you. Be still and know. And maybe that kid, Eutychus, had been still way too long, and that's why he fell asleep. But the reminder, the gospel message is that God was with him, and with the family, and with whoever, even in the midst of that death, that this boy is raised to life. But there's something else a part of that story. The Greek word. Man, who cares about Greek? The Greek word, though. Anybody use an EpiPen, by the way? EpiPen. The word sounds a little bit like EpiPen, but it's epicen instead of EpiPen. Epicen. The word gets used twice in all of the New Testament. It says Paul runs down to the boy. He covers himself, or covers the kid. And then he picks him up, embracing him, holding him close, gathering him in his arms. Epicen. He epicens him. The word is used at one other time for the story of the prodigal son, whose daddy sees him while he is still far away, and the daddy runs out and doesn't just embrace him, but the daddy basically tackles the kid and embraces him and holds him close and says, be still and know that I'm with you. Be still and know. And they embrace. Paul proclaims the resurrection is one of embracing. The same kind of embracing that God did when God reached down and picked up dirt and blew it into Adam's nostrils to create life. The same kind of embracing that God reached down 2 Fridays ago and grabbed hold of Jay Wagner and embraced him and carried him home. The same embracing that God did this past Wednesday when Joan L. fell asleep in the hands of God and she was embraced and held forever. The same kind of embracing that God embraces you with. When you need courage, may the church give you courage. When you need to be filled with the Spirit, may the Spirit touch your heart. When you need to be felt like God is with you, may you feel God is with you. Through God's Word, through God's Spirit, through the church, through one another, and through songs, and through camps like Lutheran that remind us to be still and know that I'm with you. Be still and know. One more time. Be still and know that I'm with you. Be still and know. Do not be scared. Do not be alarmed. Do not be frightened. He is alive. And then Paul went back upstairs, talked all the way until dawn the next day, and then they broke bread together to celebrate. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Hallelujah.